Hello, John.
What's that?
Hello.
Hello, how are you, Wilfred? Good to
It's
see
nice to meet you.
you. Welcome to our committee.
Thank you.
It's a good one. It's a good committee.
Well, I work with,
City Commission with you, Will.
yes, that's Les back there in the background.
Yes, that's me.
Okay.
Will, I think were you in Boy Scouts a dozen or 20 years ago?
Yeah, probably that
Yeah, I
long ago.
think
Yeah,
my
I was a
son was-
scoutmaster.
Yeah, I think my son was in your scout troop way back when he was a young
358.
kid.
Okay.
Yeah, when he's 31, he's 30 now, so
Oh,
however
wow.
long ago that's been.
What was his first name?
Alex.
Alex. Okay.
Okay, so John Wade did think it was 3:30. So he's on his way. And we are on YouTube Live right now.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order and do a roll call. And we've got John Sampin,
Here.
Les Barber,
Here.
Will Raudebush,
Here.
and when our fifth member gets here, we'll add him as a late entry, Heather.
Sounds good.
Okay, and welcome, Will, to the group.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoy whatever it is we plan to accomplish and we get it done quickly. And look forward to your input.
Well, I appreciate the invitation and being a part of it.
Okay, I was not at the February meeting. How does that work when only two of us were at the meeting to approve the minutes?
That's a
Heather,
great
Les,
Legal.
I guess, John, unless you two can review and the rest of us will support your work.
I read through them yesterday. Les, I think they look great. I have no changes. So I would move that we approve.
Okay, is there a second on,
I'll second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Minutes are approved as submitted. Election of officers. We had two new people we need to reorganize. So I would accept, as the vice chair, I would accept nominations for a new chairperson.
I'd like to nominate Gail.
And I would second.
Okay. Will, would you like to nominate yourself?
No, not at this point in time.
All right, well, I guess I'll accept that. And as that nomination was made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then I guess I'm your new chair.
You gave.
Congratulations.
And a vice chair, since I now can't do both. Who would like to entertain nominations as vice chair?
Don, you willing to do that?
I will do that. Yes.
Okay. And I will second, no, I can't second that. Can I call for a second?
I'll second John's nomination.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so John, Dr. Sampin, we have a good co-chair.
Oh,
And
good. But I'm
you'll be fine. You'll be wonderful. And we have, did our other fellow just join? We heard a
No.
noise. Okay,
I'm playing with the sound. The sound seems to be loud for some and lower for others.
okay. For a secretary has been Les. Are you willing to continue as secretary, Les?
Yeah, I'll do a full term.
Okay, do we need to accept him as, or just as a continuance?
If you motion to approve that, you should do it that way, like the other two.
Okay, so could we have a motion to have Les continue as secretary?
I was
I'd make that motion.
Okay, and second,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so we have our slate of officers. Okay. Now, I had asked to prioritize the things on this list, and I kind of got it. Basically, it's pretty much the way it's written is our requested order of importance. So we'll just take the agenda in its in its order. So the certified local government, I got to tell you, I was real disappointed that we can't include the existing historic properties. And I wasn't privy to the conversation you had last month. Do we want to have any discussion on it, or what shall we do, folks?
I'll just sort of repeat what I said then. I think that Mike Marsh sent word that he found that inclusion to be, I'm not sure he used the word unconstitutional, but that when Boomtown District was created, it was not created with the understanding that there would be rules and regulations. Now there are, so he thinks there has to be a vote of the district. And I think it is very unlikely that city council would act against Mike's advice, so.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, there's a way that the city council can adopt properties without the property owner's permission, without consent. Are you familiar with that?
Back to the draft ordinance and the recommendation of at least 60% or more in agreement. So the answer is yes and no. You could have some that don't agree, but the goal is to have the majority agree.
This John Wade,
Yes,
come in.
Sorry, I'm late.
you're fine. John Wade, for the record, is here, so we just want to make sure I note that. Sorry. No, you're fine. You're fine.
Anywhere what?
We've got you
You've
here
got a
or
name
over
tag
there.
somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, wherever you like to be. Thank you.
Okay, so what do we need to do with the CLG document? Where are we with it?
The ordinance, the draft ordinance.
Yes.
Well, we had the city attorney weigh in that we really just touched upon, and from what I gathered from his email, he is okay with it, so that's good. And then we had the State Historic Preservation Office, Nathan Bevel, review it, and I believe I forwarded you that email. You know, time
Right.
is of the essence. I can't remember. That was back in May.
Mm-hmm.
And he provided two, if you want to, I can read it for the record. He basically says, addresses it to me, Heather, my apologies, my review for Bowling Green got tied up with a few other ordinances and I forgot to send my email. I have reviewed everything and have a few suggestions. One of them, the first below, I'd really push for if the ordinance has not gone to council yet. Number one, some clarification that 2 professionals will be sought out for the board. All members should have an interest in preservation, but 2 specific members should meet as available in the community, the professional qualifications. Number 2, the additional duties of the board as agreed to by the city and SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, are not necessarily related to maintaining certification. They are typically Section 106 related reviews or National Register related. If this has already gone to council, we should still be able to proceed. I hope all is going well as it can be expected in Bowling Green. Regards, Nathan Bevel, Community Planning and Preservation Manager, Ohio History Connection out of Columbus. So that was it. I haven't touched the ordinance since. I just forwarded you the comments we received.
Yeah, right. And I read those, but I still don't know what we need to do
Well, I guess we need to look back at the ordinance,
specifically.
make sure he, or what we're recommending meets what he is suggesting. I have not done that.
I have a suggestion about his first, well, I guess about both of them. I think we should ignore the second one. It doesn't seem to be saying that it matters, especially whether we have these additional duties listed in the legislation. So I think that it's good to have everything listed in one place. So I would argue we should just leave the descriptions of the duties of the HPC alone. On the first one, it would be easy enough to add a phrase, a clause at the end of, where is it? It would be page page 9. No, sorry, it would be page 5 of the ordinance. You know, we could add at the end something like after the word preferred. If everybody's with me, you probably aren't.
Mhm.
Which item you're,
It's 15804, item C, right?
I don't say right at the end, right at the end. Yep, shall be preferred.
It says that people with an interest, knowledge, expertise are preferred. And we could add, and every effort will be made to assure that the HPC shall have at least 2 members that at least 2 members will always have such interest, experience, and knowledge. I would argue against going any farther than that because we could be in a situation some year where the mayor couldn't find anybody with.
Well, it makes it sound like what you just said, it sounded like only 2 members would have interest. I'm not sure that would be right.
No, it says that everybody should.
Yeah, everybody should. He was talking about like 2 people being professionals. That's the part of it
Doesn't.
that I don't know you need.
Doesn't say professionals. Our language says people with, what is it?
Or profession, knowledge and or profession.
Right. And I'm thinking to meet Nathan's criticism that if we said special effort will be made to make sure that at least 2 meet that official designation.
Does that work for you, Heather?
I work at your pleasure.
Doesn't Neville, doesn't Bevel say, yeah, and
Yeah.
Nathan says at least 2. Good.
I think it's fine. I like your wording, Wes.
It's also on page 16 too, so we'd have to
Oh, is
just
it? I didn't know
duplicate
that.
those changes. Not a big deal, just point that out.
And page 16, okay. I mean, I don't know, maybe some of you see it differently, but I don't see, I don't think it's wise to risk the possibility that we would have to run a year or longer with fewer than the requisite number if the mayor couldn't find somebody with some more official expertise.
Well, and that's a good point, because in a small community, you don't always have a huge pool to draw from that are willing to volunteer. So, you know, you don't want to say we're absolutely going to have one kind of professional person and then we
No.
can't find them.
No, you need just the diverse thoughts even.
Right.
So
At
it's,
the moment, for example, I guess that Will is the only one who has an official professional expertise, but, you know, a couple of us have, I would argue, a related kind of expertise, but let's not get into that now. Let's just forget that I said it. We could debate that some other time.
so Les, can you write that sentence down for Heather to include in the document?
Okay, I have it here. I can give it to her later. Or I can.
And then if that's our only change, can we move to the next step, which is submitting it?
Second thing would be, would you agree that we should ignore his second suggestion? This is kind of a mystery to you, I'm sure.
It is, but that's fine. I'll catch on as we go.
Bring you up to date.
What was his second suggestion?
That he just points out that the additional duties of the board, we list quite a few. And he's saying is basically that some of them are not really required by SHPO for certification. And that's true, that's fine, but I don't see any reason why we can't leave them in our legislation if we choose to. And as I said before, I think it's really wise to have everything in one place instead of having these described here and somewhere else as well.
I guess I'm all right with leaving it as is, what we have for that second part.
That would be on page lost it. I don't know where it is.
Page 6 of the powers and duties, 158.05.
Page 6, you said?
Yeah, where it starts. Mhm.
Bevel is saying, the state guy is saying, is only some of these that are related to the actual listing of properties are required to be in a enabling in an enabling legislation, but that, you know, we have some others, we listed as many as we could think of that the mayor or others have suggested should be the duty.
Well, folks, what's your pleasure?
I have one, just a clarification, as we have in our minutes, and I believe it was Les that proposed that we change the percentage. We just mentioned that a little bit ago, the 60%.
Yeah, I was going to get to that, John, if you hadn't.
Okay,
But are we agreed first of all that leaving the description of duties alone is acceptable to everybody?
yes, I agree. Do we need to vote on that?
Think so.
No.
Not if
Heather,
we're,
what
not if
does
we're not
Heather have?
changing anything in the document. we
No,
don't
I
need to
mean,
vote.
yeah, it's not an official document, so still in draft.
Right, it's still a draft. Once we accept all of the changes, then we'll approve the draft to be submitted to the city council. Is that the correct order, Heather?
Yes.
So Les is gonna add, he's gonna provide his verbiage for the first issue, CLG ordinance. The second suggestion about the duties will be stand as is. And then the voting percentage, Les, you had a comment, and John?
Go ahead, Les, if you want to.
Okay, we voted at the last meeting, when you weren't here, Gail, to change that 60% to 51% of the residents of a district, proposed district.
Okay,
And the basic argument, and we're probably going to have to make this argument, maybe carefully, maybe one by one with the mayor and council members, that, you know, given the particular nature of Bowling Green as a community full of rental units, it might be in many cases very, very hard to get 60% of the owners of a proposed district to agree. And so I think giving ourselves the maximum possible advantage is the wise way to go. And I think 51% is the maximum we could possibly stand on.
And that shows up on page 9, right? Item D.
Yep.
Where did the 60% come from to start with?
It's been used by some other community.
Kind of a
you.
standard benchmark used, just like the special improvement district for the city. You
Yeah.
have to have 60% to have that approved.
Okay, thank you.
do you know if there's any legal precedent, Heather, for us, that certain percentage, supermajority?
Not that I heard from Nathan or our city attorney.
Okay. What,
I think we should give it a try and lobby as hard as we can for it.
I think that's it's an important point, and if and when we have to go to a, I think we have a better chance of getting a community to accept that. So I'm really, really strongly in favor of making that change.
so I see it on page 9 in the D, what would that be, 158.06, item D, like dog. Is it anywhere else in this document? I don't believe so. And it's already been changed on the draft that I had, that Heather sent me this morning.
Heather, did you send us all that new draft?
I just asked her for it this morning because it's been so long. I want to make sure I was on the right one.
Okay.
I think I sent it at one point in time. I say that because I've sent so many emails the past week. I don't even remember what day it
I
is.
I didn't find it.
It
in
hit-
the that I have.
It, it has a date on,
Probably.
Okay, I
electronic.
can
Date-
send it again.
the
Yeah,
date
this
on the
one's-
one, the date on the one that you gave me, Heather, was April 24th.
Yes,
That's
2020.
that's the most recent.
Yep.
And
That's the
does
one
it
I'm
have
working from.
1%?
yes,
Okay, but could you send that to me one more time, please?
yes. Mm-hmm.
And I have a question. If you've got building owners that have more than one building in the district, they have only one vote or one vote per building? One
Yeah.
vote per building.
We
Par-
could,
a
we
parcel.
could try the other, but we.
Okay,
lose
well,
some.
I'm asking for, yeah, okay,
I think
that's
it's probably
Great
one
question.
per building.
Or property.
per
Parcel.
per
Parcel,
property.
yeah.
Okay,
That's,
Per
that's why
parcel.
that's why it's written right now. That's what's in the document.
Right. So somebody that owns more than one property would get a vote per each property. That's correct, Heather?
Yes.
Now, I have a question, sort of a procedural thing. I own some properties, some rental properties, had some old weird titling, and I had 2 parcel numbers. Does that count as one vote or 2? For some reason,
I
for
would have
some
to-
reason, they merged a property and built a house on literally 2 parcels. I got 2 tax bills.
I'd have to ask Mike Marsh. I can't answer that, but I know what you're saying. I see a lot of
Yeah.
situations where
Right. I would want to make clear that if a property had more than one tax bill, that they don't get 2 votes. How do you define an entity? Is it by
Yeah.
the tax? Yeah, is it the address, the tax bill? I would want clarification on that somehow,
Sure.
that's, yeah, important.
because what's a vote?
And again, it's probably the same as a SID. So I think we already have a model out there and I just have to ask how that works.
Okay. All right, our 2 new members, do you have any questions or concerns about this document?
No, I guess mine was just the status. And I think you've answered it, like where it's still in the draft form. And the other, I guess the question that talks about it in the document about historic overlay zoning, has that been established like on the zoning map?
No, this is part of the draft. So
Okay.
it would be a chapter in its own of the city ordinances, but then as part of this, we would have to update the zoning code, chapter
That'd be
150.
part of what actually even needs to be done then is establishing the overlay zoning map.
Doesn't
Right.
this document create that?
Yes, right, but it's not.
And because we're not including any of the existing historic districts, our overlay zoning map will have nothing on it.
Right, you're just creating that zoning district as part of this, or the overlay, until something becomes rezoned with the overlay, or you add the overlay, I should say.
You start growing the overlay.
Mhm.
Just like the city just passed the Gateway Corridor zoning district. We have that established now, but nothing has been rezoned to that.
Okay.
You can't rezone something where you don't even have the district in existence yet.
Right.
So my question is, and I read through this, but I'm still lost, so is this district defined yet? Or
No,
is that's basically what we're talking, it's not defined yet. And we will, as a group, try to define that district. Is that how this will work?
yes, sort of. Yeah,
It's a
you can
little
make
complicated, right?
recommendations
But-
of
Okay.
what you want those boundaries to be.
So who ultimately decides those boundaries?
Well, ultimately it's city council, but you would still have planning commission recommendation to go to city council, because
Okay,
it's a zoning overlay.
all right.
Yes, it's complicated. Les said that in one word.
I'll get up to speed as we go. I promise you that.
Oh, we're sure.
I mean, you and Will both need to be comfortable with this, because if we submit it, you're part of the group, and I want to make sure you're with it, or we need to make sure you understand or help clarify. So
From my reading of it before I got here and from my knowledge of it, it seems to me like it's a great thing for the downtown area. So I think it's definitely, I'm behind it at this point. I'm sure I'll have questions as we go that I won't understand, that I'll need all of you to help me with, but
Okay.
yeah.
I guess my concern, I think it'll probably be a lot of work, but would be the procedures of actually reviewing the COAs, the certificates of appropriateness, because that seems like that could be a big responsibility of this commission would be, and when somebody actually applies for one.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a question on the other related to, has Bowling Green been approved as a certified local government, CLG, because that's mentioned.
That's what this is doing. This document has to go to the city council. The city council has to do 1, 2, and 3 readings or whatever the all procedure is. And then it's adopted, and then we become a certified local government at that point. And Heather, correct me if I'm wrong at any of this. At that point, we can do things like organize historic districts, organize for some grant funding from the state to do educational outreach to try and make people come on board or help come on board. Am I close, Heather?
Yes, you're very
Okay,
close.
very
Just
good.
to back up, once this ordinance would be passed, we'd have to apply to become a certified local government first. So we've sort of did the first step with that because I sent Nathan the CLG checklist that is part of the application. So I could fill out a majority of the application and then get his feedback. So we're kind of already halfway there with that CLG checklist.
Okay.
So, but SHPO has to approve and allow us to become or approve us to become a CLG. Can't do that until this ordinance is passed.
So it's one step forward and a couple of steps sidewards, and then back to the middle.
I'll go with the forward. I'll go with the forward.
Okay, any
Thank
other
you.
questions, concerns?
Just to go back a second to Will's question, we talked at one point about the likelihood that we would need to try to find volunteer people with certain kinds of expertise, given the nature of a particular CAO, whatever they are, to help advise us in making a decision.
There's probably other cities have examples of those even. So what they even look like, what a certificate, like an application, because it seemed like application has to be developed and the whole process of where that goes and who, if it says the commission is the one that looks at, reviews them and does the approval, but just the steps of the procedures.
Well, the state has a lot of resources available, and Heather's got connections in other communities, Perrysburg,
good.
and so
Yeah, very good.
I think we can take some existing materials and rebrand them for our own use with editing.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have looked at Perrysburg a lot because they've had this established for at least 3 decades. And so we looked a lot at them. And I will agree with you though, Will, this is a huge responsibility, especially for the planning department, because really we're going to be weeding a lot of this out and before it gets to this group's approval. So it's definitely a big responsibility not to take lightly.
Heather, do you think you could get a hold of like Perrysburg's historic overlay zoning? Like if they have something like that, if you could get a copy of that so we could even see what it looks like?
We have the language. Is that what you mean?
No, the actual physical map. Like in other words, it'd be like the zoning maps, with the different districts. It'd be kind of interesting to see what does Perrysburg say historic overlay look like. It'd be kind of, since we're familiar with Perrysburg, it'd be kind of interesting to see what, did it go over for MIGs? And it's probably, the downtown and.
Yes, it definitely is downtown and around downtown. I think I already have the map, but I'd have to double check. I don't know how current it is.
Yeah, I think you showed it to us once early on in this process.
Okay.
So
Cool.
I'm sure we have access, and Nathan Bevel at the Ohio Historic Preservation Office has been extremely generous and helpful. And, he's come to town 2 or 3 different times to help the various groups. So
And I think it might be on their website, Will.
That's why I was just writing down to maybe go look for it because they probably have it.
Okay.
And I've been to
Thank-
some other cities that you can, that have tons of information on historic preservation commissions in their own cities. So I don't think we're starting from square one all by our little selves.
Could you give us maybe a list of some of those cities?
Yeah,
That you have
I looked
ex-
some, I
Yes.
can,
Yeah,
and Heather too.
Yeah, that
Yeah, I
would be,
think we gave the last list to you all and it had gotten up to maybe close to 70 communities that are CLG
Wow.
communities in
Mhm.
Ohio. It's grown quite a bit and I know they've been real busy and
they probably listed,
If
probably Google that too.
close
Something
by,
like 97 of them now.
I think it's in the 70s.
Thought it was higher, actually, but
Okay.
maybe you're right. Could be making it up.
Yeah, I saw where it's, in one of the presentations talked to Bowling Green was the only university city that wasn't a CLG
Mhm.
Yeah,
in
right.
Ohio.
Truth.
Cool.
So we'll get there.
Soon, yeah.
All right, so what with the changes that Les suggested to the page 9, I think that was, and 51%, are there any other changes? And can we go forward with submitting this to the city council or wherever it goes next?
I would so move.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye. Anyone opposed? Carries unanimously.
So that was just a recommendation to send this document to city council, correct?
Right.
And I know Les, I don't know how many months back now, you had wrote a letter to go with it.
Right, so I was going to ask for review of that. We looked at it, I think, in February. So Gail, I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's a transmittal letter
Okay.
to the mayor and city council.
Do you have it?
I have it.
Do you want to just read it to us?
Sure. You ready?
Ready.
Okay, to Bowling Green City Council from the commission. Proposed certified local government ordinance. The certified local government program is a preservation partnership among local, state, and national governments focused on promoting historic preservation at the grassroots level. The program is jointly administered by the National Park Service and the Ohio Historic Preservation Office, with each local community working through a certification process to become recognized as a certified local government, CLG. CLGs become active partners in the Federal Historic Preservation Program and have access to the grant opportunities it provides. Being a CLG shows Bowling Green's commitment to keeping what is significant from its past for future generations to enjoy. Okay, so that's the kind of flowery intro paragraph. Second paragraph, the enclosed proposed new legislation retains the overall structure and goals of the former proposed legislation from 2014-15, but does so in a more citizen-friendly way. The intent of the legislation is to ensure that all properties given historic preservation status and protection in the city of Bowling Green, and then a hyphen and italicized, which can only happen through subsequent legislative action to designate specific historic buildings, districts, landmarks, objects, sites, and structures, and dash shall meet the standards set forth therein. Okay, trying to emphasize to in their minds, this is not actually doing anything yet. This is just creating the legal mechanism that allows us to do it. Third paragraph, this proposed new legislation differs in several important ways from its predecessor. One, first of all, it does not include a detailed set of so-called design guidelines as its predecessor did. Such guidelines, non-binding in nature, will be developed and presented to council at a later stage. Two, Second, it is written so that the rules governing owner proposed changes to the backs of historic buildings will be applied more leniently and flexibly than those governing the fronts and sides of buildings, so long as the alteration is generally consistent in appearance with the historic feel of the building, and so long as the streetscape is not noticeably affected. We support, quote, sympathetic preservation, end quote, rather than pure, in quotes, preservation. Number 3, and third, it is not the intent of this legislation to dictate every small detail of alterations, restorations, etc., to a historic property. In relatively minor matters of detail, flexibility will be allowed. For example, if a residential owner knows that regular wooden porch steps will not hold the paint that she has chosen, non-wooden boards of a close color may be substituted. Or to give another example, if owners wish to replace wooden double-hung windows with more efficient models, they may do so, so long as the replacements give the same general appearance as the originals. And final paragraph, the Historic Preservation Commission shall, in every instance of a proposed alteration, restoration, replacement, etc., work cooperatively with the owner of the property to seek a practical execution of the proposed work that will honor both the owner's intent and the goal of historic preservation as defined in this and any related legislation in the city of Bowling Green.
Any comments, questions, concerns?
Sounds good.
The citizen-friendly way, is that basically what you're describing there in 1, 2, and 3? Is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The 214, the 14, 15 thing raised a lot of concern,
Okay.
or at least it raised noticeable in the community about too much detail and overwhelming, and they're gonna make us do this, and they're gonna.
Okay.
Trying to take a somewhat different approach.
I guess my only question is rehashing history necessary? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but because it's been almost 5 years or 6 going on. Do we need to refer to that other document or not?
I guess I would argue that at least some of the stakeholders here, council members, will remember that
Okay,
fairly specifically, and that's probably wise to face up to it.
okay.
That's just my view.
I forgot if it was Will or John that mentioned, and I think this is true, that we're the only university town that doesn't have a CLG. Would it be useful to put that in here to just emphasize that we're out of the ordinary here, and maybe not in a good way?
Well, to my knowledge, the mayor is painfully aware of that situation, so I don't know whether it needs to be in this letter or not. Certainly wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, well, I think we have his support from what I can tell.
Mhm.
So maybe it's not so important.
Be easy enough to add it if you'd like that done.
Yeah, I think just a brief sentence of when, sort of on your overview.
Well, you could add the number of CLGs too, once we look that up.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Wade, anything from you?
No, I'm fine at this point. Thank you.
Okay. We ready to call for a vote or a motion?
I move to accept his yes. I am sorry, Gail.
Okay,
The gun there. I would move to accept Les's letter and to send it on to the council.
I'll second it.
okay. Motion on the floor to accept the CLG and the cover letter as submitted. Is that correct? Is that the motion?
That sounds good. Yes.
Okay. As amended at today's meeting. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Can I keep?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
The next.
Okay, we got that out of the way. Now we need to back up. And I'll call you Mr. Wade because there's two Johns. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate your interest in the commission. And if you want, you and Will could kind of introduce yourselves to us and give us the elevator speech.
Let John go ahead.
John,
Okay.
go first.
First, I'm sorry I was late.
Not a problem.
My letter from Mike tells me 3:30. So we'll blame it on him.
We have been meeting at 3:30 regularly before. That's why that
Oh,
happened.
okay.
Too bad.
I'm
That's all
happy.
right.
to help. You know, we've been residents of Bowling Green for, gosh, 35, 40 years. Kids have gone to school here, gone to college. Our grandkids go here. I'm almost completely retired now, from a business that my son-in-law and I started in town here. I'm happy to help BG. I truly feel blessed that we raised our kids here. It's been a great place. And now I've got the time to give back a little bit, so I'm more than willing to do that. So
Well, we truly appreciate that.
What was your business, John?
we did industrial water treatment.
Now, are you a downtown business, building owner, property owner?
Yes. We own the building where Insomnia Cookies is.
Oh, okay.
Wooster, and then our offices were in the center of that, the center suite. We rent out the front and the back.
Okay.
Industrial
Water treatment.
water treatment.
Do a lot of hospitals and factories and
And you're an owner. Great. Okay, welcome.
Will, how about you?
Well, I just retired last June from Bowling Green State University after 27 years there. I'm a registered architect. That's what my career was before I got into education. And I got my first license in Colorado in 1977. So kind of been involved a lot with the community as scoutmaster and former president of actually one of the incorporates of the Wood County Habitat for Humanity, and served with Les on the Bowling Green Planning Commission, and hopefully I can bring something to the commission. I like buildings. I was actually involved in Colorado Springs. We lived there 5 years, and I was involved with CURE, which is the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Effort. So one of our downtown, I worked in Shook's Run, which is a kind of a poor section on the east side, but our downtown division pretty much demolished a lot of downtown Colorado Springs. And our architecture firm I worked for later then was in a historic building there. So I've been around the character of historic buildings and understand the value that you can't design and build into buildings today, a lot of that character. So I look forward to working with you all.
Okay, let's see, where are we next? We are going to talk about public engagement plan. I emailed a brief, haven't gotten much done, I apologize. I will continue to sort of oversee this, but to the two new guys, I'd love some assistance and help. We need to, especially now that we have to lobby support for historic districts within our city, we're going to have to do some serious outreach before we get much support, I'm afraid. So any ideas you have to making that better, that public outreach happen, I would really appreciate it.
Gail, maybe before we go even further, do our new members know who we are?
Oh, well, that would be something.
That would be good,
You
yeah.
go first, John.
Appreciate that.
Happy to. My name is John Sampen, and I am in the College of Musical Arts, where I've been teaching for the last 42 years
Oh,
as the saxophone professor. And I'm still teaching, continuing, at least for a while. I've lived in Bowling Green since we moved here. And my wife, who's also in the College of Musical Arts, we own a house on North Maple, in the Boomtown Historic District, and we love our old community, and we want to see it preserved. So I have a strong interest in helping do that if I can.
Okay, Les?
I'm Les Barber. My wife and I live in the 300 block of North Prospect Street, kitty corner across from the Wood County office building. I'm a retired professor of English at the university. I've been retired for, God, a long time now, seems like. And what else? I'm also like John and Gail. You know, we have a nice house. We like it very much. We like the idea of preserving it. And so I have a personal interest in the issue as well as a kind of professional.
I am Gail. I am a retired operations manager, was my most recent gig with a software company. I live in the big red and gray house at the corner across from the new Worcester Green, which I've got to tell, the city really did me a solid putting that beautiful park right next to my house. I like to sit in my patio and watch what goes on. It's been interesting to see the use. Since the quarantine hit, a lot of families are using the space just to hang out and bring their kids and run around. And I just love being in Bowling Green. My husband's family's been here for more than a century. I am a newcomer as of 1998. So, but I live and love old houses. And Heather, why don't you tell us a tiny bit about yourself?
I wasn't expecting that. I've been in the city working here for 13 years almost, which seems like time flew by. And I live here also. I don't live in an old house, but certainly historic preservation as a planner is very critical. So, and I'm raising my family here also of 4 children. So I think that's it, unless you have any questions.
Very good.
Okay. All right, so public engagement plan. I made a little bit of inroads on the walking map, because that's was the last thing we talked about was, gee, isn't there a walking map? And I talked to the Visitors Bureau. I talked to the library. There is an app that exists through the visitors, the Bowling Green Visitors and whatever their rest of their name is, Visitor Convention Bureau. And the woman I spoke to out there said, I said, well, if we wanted to do a cooperative work, could we provide the information and add on? Because they have a mobile app that has a mapping system. And she said, yeah, she thought we could probably work together on that. So I was very, I feel like there's a real positive. And when I talked to the lady at the Marnie at the library, they've been doing walking tours based on a really old map that I helped produce back in the 90s, I think. Yes, somewhere in the early 2000s, maybe it was. And it all needs to be updated and upgraded, but I think there's an opportunity to do some work on that. Don't think it's going to be a huge amount of work, because a lot of the information exists, but I think it's a coordination effort. We'll take that. And for Will and John, we had also talked about trying to sort of as a parallel organization with this group to do a foundation that could do some of the things that a municipal body cannot do. And I've got a little bit of the footwork started for that, but not as much as needs to be done. So if either of you are experienced in 501c3 formation, I'd welcome your expertise.
And being involved with Habitat for Humanity, when Maxie Miller and I and another gentleman incorporated and started that, it is a job, because
it's a job.
And part of it gets into the tax reporting that has to go on as a corporation. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what the purpose of your foundation is, whether it be like, say, an endowment where you would receive money to give out.
Like possibly a revolving loan sort of fund. And I mean, and that we might be getting way ahead of ourselves, because I know there's a lot of the reporting, and every 4 years things change, sometimes more often.
Well, I got involved with endowments through the university when I actually created the campus chapter Habitat for Humanity. And one of the students had me go talk to Tim Coder, who used to be in the development office. So that's where I got a taste of the endowments and funds. So Diane Huffman, the attorney, was the attorney with Habitat for Humanity, Wood County. So her and I started to set up a foundation, and somebody goes, well, why are you doing that? Why aren't you just part of the Bowling Green one, which is umbrellaed under the Toledo
the Community Foundation. I don't know who's in charge of the Community Foundation these days.
I don't know for sure, but I met with Bridget Holt up at Toledo, and we ended up.
They're umbrellaed under the Toledo Community Foundation. I haven't seen Bridget for years. Is she
but
still
whether
there?
that's I think so. The last time I saw their site, she was on there. But if
That's a good idea.
I mean, if that's your thoughts, because I presented that, and then when Diane and I realized, well, we don't need to create our own, because then you're into the tax reporting and all the things. So we actually had a donor that donated $100,000 to Habitat through the foundation, and it was giving off at that time 5%. Now I think it may be 3%. But if there's potential donors, you know, I don't know that you could get into and say the grant writing and things like that, you know, unless it's money that's accumulated, because you pretty much have the money in the foundation, and you get interest off of it is what you could use, either use or hand out as like loans or whatever. But that's my thought on it.
That's good. Well, since you know these folks, would you be willing to have a conversation with them, like, you know, as we go along? Not right now, but as we get a little more familiar, would you be willing to maybe explore that with your knowledge?
It depends if that's the direction you'd want to go. I'd be glad to. I mean, that's it's just different than, say, being able to apply for private grants now, because that's not part of what that would do. It would be there's so few and far between, and the city has a grant. The city of Bowling Green has more access to grants than private people. See, that's what I was thinking, that the city has some kind of, like with a community development or block grants or anything, if there's grants that the city could write or go for, but it would be earmarked.
Isn't her name Barb? Is that the lady that is the Heather? Is it Barb still?
Well, no, Tina Bradley is our grants administrator, but she takes care of EG Transit and the CDBG money that handles that, along with housing revolving loan fund and the business revolving loan fund. So she doesn't write grants. It's really kind of a misnomer of her name. Generally, it's up to the individual departments to go after grants that relate to it. So Public Works goes after types of grants with ODOT and road improvements. Utilities does their own thing in regards to utility projects. So it would have to be under the auspice of probably the planning department and your work.
Because there's almost no grant money out there anymore. It's really dried up.
Yeah, I mean, especially Preserve America. We became a member of that. Well, it's probably been 12 years ago. They originally had grants, and those went away very quickly after we became a member. So I'm hoping we weren't bad luck with that. But they used to have a little bit.
There's no free money anymore. Anyway, so I guess that's all. That's as far as my public engagement plan update goes, and we'll just keep plugging away at it.
I didn't want to minimize, though, the importance of education as this ordinance becomes out into the public, because Les should remember this, of all people, of really how messy it was last time around. So I really think if there's an FAQ list or some sort of, general list of questions, I think that would help council and the community. Can I paint my house? Things like what Les mentioned in his letter, but I think it has to be more comprehensive than that, or it's easy to get derailed very quickly and intimidate everybody. Yeah. So that's just my suggestion.
So that should be a part of the city's website. So I guess I would need guidance from you to how to get it from 0 to 60.
I would just look at more of a document that maybe.
But it has to be somewhere. It can't be a paper thing in somebody's file. You have to be able to go online somewhere and get it. So we need the city's
Right.
website needs to have a place that can happen, and I don't know where that would be.
Right, well, you're already on our city website, the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning Department, so it would be on the Planning Department webpage. But it could become a more current button on the homepage once it becomes a little more engaged and out there, if that makes sense. But for now, you're on there already. It's just that if we have a document to share, that's where we could put it.
Well, but I'm thinking if you're doing a public awareness engagement, people want to go to a website and see some stuff. We don't have some stuff yet.
Correct, that's what I'm asking you for, is what my point is.
Mhm.
I think it's really important that that gets out there. And I'm happy to help. My plate is really full right now. But anything we can put on the website is something we will do. That's not a problem.
Okay.
I mean, whether it's a
So you're
PowerPoint
thinking-
and,
You're thinking of pre-council acting on the CLG legislation?
yes,
So this is an immediate need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what I think they're gonna do is they would, obviously get your recommendation to approve this, but then they're gonna have to kick it to planning commission also. So I mean, it's gonna, need more and more engagement and just, again, education. I think it'll be critical. So if we have a very user-friendly, easy document, I can look at our old stuff that we used, the 2014, 2015 information and see what we had out there.
Is that
It's a
available?
start.
It didn't work, so.
Oh, I know.
Oh, less.
We can all get a copy.
Don't say that.
Kind
Mhm.
of piece
Oh,
through
yeah.
it.
Mhm.
Okay.
But we did have
It's a
power-
place to start.
It's the place to start. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what we need to do at this point, but I mean, I'd be willing to help with that in any way I can. I don't know anything about websites and setting them up, but the writing
Well,
part.
but if the framework exists within the city, we just need to get the information. If we can get the information, I have, computer skills, we can do the formatting and we can get it to the city webmaster to put on, but we need the information. And it really doesn't need to be in any more of a format at this point than a Word document. So if would you maybe be, would you be willing to work with Les on something like that? Start putting together some information and then we can edit and revisit next time we meet? Or,
Good.
okay,
And I think it's important to put on your downtown business owner hat or your homeowner hat because, you're in your spot and what you believe, but you have to think of the person that thinks opposite of you and,
mhm.
what all the questions are in their mind of what that means for their property. But I'll email out the last documents we created. I think it was a PowerPoint because we had talked to some specific stakeholder groups before. And I know we had a FAQ sheet of some type or a flyer.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff and now some of it doesn't apply because it's not what we have edited out some of that from our document.
They consult with you.
I was
too,
gonna say, I'd be willing to help with that as well, because my perspective probably might be a little different coming from downtown.
Well, that'd be great. So Les, you can spearhead that and you've got two participants to do a little
Okay.
information compiling. That would be wonderful.
Seems like on something like that even would be looking at like the sort of the phases that we're going through. In other words, would be even like frequently asked questions, say about just the establishment of the commission and its purpose and establishing historic districts and
Mhm.
not so much. I don't know about getting into the nuts and bolts of like I've got a house or a building that's got a certain details. Can I remove them or what do I do? It just seemed like maybe using it to even educate the people about what we're doing or what's being set up and where, if they have questions about what is this commission, what is going on with this?
Yeah, that's sort of a good place to start because we don't even have design guidelines yet, so we can't really publish them.
No, or even questions about the CLG, like what's a CLG? What does it do?
And I can't urge brevity enough, because I hate when I go onto a website and I've got to read 50,000 pages about something when I wanted 2 sentences. So I'm an editing fool. I love to keep things brief if I can.
My instinct at this point is to try to anticipate as many questions as we're likely to get at this early stage.
That's right. Yeah.
Provide answers for
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
And Will is right, we should stay away from design details.
No,
That's-
those questions come later, sort of like,
Well,
yeah,
and
this is like,
something on a website, it can always be added to and updated,
Yeah.
and you know, it's way more fluid than life used to be.
questions are going to change.
Yeah, the answers will too.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on the public? We've tackled that. Updating of goals. Is that Les? Was that yours or John? Which one of you requested that?
Well, you remember we adopted a set of goals for 3 years. We had a set of goals for 2019, 20, 2021, 21, 22. I just think we need to update that, and it's a good chance for us to think what our priorities need to be. And if you don't mind me just rambling for a few minutes about some
Okay.
details, I will. I mean, it seems to me that the most immediate need is to get the CLG legislation passed. If that doesn't happen, then most of what we're talking about is gone with the wind. You know, we'd still exist. I suppose we could do some things. I will have lost a whole lot of interest if that happened. But, okay, so I think that's number one.
Okay,
Number two, I think, is getting a preliminary notion of what the vote count is likely to be in Boomtown and downtown. To
do
see
you think we should, when you're talking about Boomtown and downtown, should we, when we're looking at forming historic districts, should we generally go with what's on the National Register? We don't have to, if we're making new historic districts, we don't have to stay with those prescribed.
Yeah, but
Borders.
the great thing about those two is all of the really serious legwork has been done.
Okay,
We don't have to do any research because that's already been done. All we have to do is get a vote of 51, hopefully 51% of the owners.
okay,
And it may be that the districts will need to be revised a little bit in order to get the 51. But I mean, it seems to me that if we can't get those two, then what's the chance of getting any new ones?
okay. So you would want to go by each district and sort of get a straw poll of what,
Yeah.
who you think might be in that 51%.
So I have a question. This district would probably follow somewhat along the National Historic District that's already been established. Do I understand that
That's what
right?
we're
Yes.
talking about. The ones that downtown is already a national historic district.
Okay, and
Same thing with Boomtown.
and I can get that. I have no idea what that district encompasses now. I know that our office is in it, but I don't know any more than that.
Mhm.
If I can find that out.
Heather's got a lot of information that she's provided to us, and I'm sure she or we can pass on to you about those two. Because she gave me the application that went to the National Trust, the National Park Service, for both of them, and they had all of the information. So we can redistribute that, Heather, if you can, or I will.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it just won't be immediately, hopefully.
Okay,
Mid
next week's fine.
Appreciate it.
And I don't know if you want to do it immediately or if you want to wait a month or so until we know more, but I think if you're willing to take the lead with downtown to try to do a kind of preview straw poll.
If
That
you
would
can
be
help
great.
get me up to speed, I'll do whatever I can.
Well, I'll help as much as I can.
Thank you.
And the same should happen with Boomtown, in my opinion, because if we get those two, I mean, the work is done except for the voting. if we get those two, that's a great start. Then,
The other three properties were individual properties that were at this point municipally owned. One was the courthouse and two were city properties.
that's my third point. I think we should try to get those. How many are there? There's Needle Hall, the courthouse, most important, the courthouse, Needle Hall, the old.
And
post office.
the post office,
Is there one more?
the old post office, the senior center
Yeah.
that the city has designs on doing new things with.
There's a fourth one. Can anybody remember?
There's only three, Needle Hall,
There's only three? Okay.
the senior center and the courthouse. Isn't that right, Heather?
Yeah, and the
Three.
two-
And the two districts.
And then
Okay.
the two districts.
Well, they don't need a vote. All we need is the commissioners to say, yes, we want to do it. And we could do it. And the city to do the same with Needle Hall. And I don't know who owns the post office at the moment, but maybe the city.
The city,
Senior center, is that what?
The,
yes.
The city owns that.
yeah, the senior center.
Yeah.
So Heather, how would that be, how would we do that? Would we just write a letter to the entities that are the owners and say, we would like you to, and fill in the blank, to be a part of this historic district? Or,
Yeah, I think you're getting ahead of me on that one. I mean, we definitely have to have a letter, a form letter that we would use.
so it would be us requesting to the city to put their property as a protected listed property.
Yeah, I think something to
That's
that.
the mechanism, okay. But we can't do that until the CLG's done.
We
So all
need,
the
Ordinance
Right,
adopted,
right.
all
right?
the readings have to happen, is that correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Okay, go on, Les.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to write a few notes here. Okay, so, okay, then the next, I'm sort of trying to put these things in some kind of priority order. Getting Boomtown and downtown listed would be the next major steps, I think. We get the CLG legislation. Our efforts should go into getting those two listed. As along with the courthouse and, okay, the existing National Register. And I think then the design guidelines and inventories come later. I mean, we'll have to do them eventually, they're important. But if we can't win on some of these basic things, then, as I said before, there's less incentive, less reason even.
Okay, so I'm gonna be the devil's advocate as a Boomtown homeowner. So you come to me and say, I want you to vote for, I want you to be forming a historic preservation district, but you're not gonna tell me what I'm signing on to for design guidelines until later.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's
No,
what,
I mean, we're gonna maybe disagree about this. I think that we have put everything that's a requirement in our CLG legislation.
Mhm.
The design guidelines, as I'm seeing them now, maybe I'm wrong, are going to be suggestions. If you want to do a great job with your house or your downtown building, here are a whole set of suggestions about what to do. But what you have to do is in the CLG legislation.
Mhm. Well, I can just see myself and a lot of my neighbors going, whoa, what am I signing on to? What exactly are you what are you gonna burden me with when I want to paint my house or when I want to
like,
remodel my, whatever, I wanna put on new steps on my porch because they won't hold paint anymore. What is it you're asking me to sign on to? And I can just see that my neighbors are all gonna want more information than just, oh gee, it'll be great and we'll tell you later.
it's
I
like,
think businesses are gonna be the exact same way.
it's like, sounds restrictive right
Mhm.
now.
Dig back
I mean,
into the legislation.
In our minds, we wanna help them, but in their minds, we wanna restrict them. You're right, Will.
You're not gonna want their choice taken away from them necessarily unless they've got some idea up front of what's gonna be involved with that, I think.
Well, what the document basically says is can't make any changes that are not historically appropriate to the front or sides of your building. Period. Significant changes. Minor things like the nature of the wood on a porch step, the kind of windows, but the appearance has to stay historically the way it is, or if you're proposing bigger changes, they have to be in the direction of greater historicity.
And so let me, because I'm trying to get this straight. Insomnia Cookies rents the front of our building from us, and they've got a big canvas awning that's striped. It obviously doesn't need any historical significance, okay? And sometimes Insomnia Cookies has come to us and said, we want something done for the building different. And we're in the process of painting it right now. So if it's the building next door to us, my question is going to be, so the striped awning, do we have to come to you before we change that? If we want to change the colors of the building and we're going to paint it to make it look better, do we have to get those approved beforehand?
Nothing about painting in our document.
Okay.
About the awning, if you do nothing, nothing is required. If you don't want to do anything, there's nothing in this document that makes you do anything. But if you want to make a change, then the change has to be in the direction of greater historical authenticity.
And so if they wanted to replace the awning because it's worn and old and looks bad, then
if they wanted to replace it pretty much exactly as it is, my guess is that most commissions would say, okay, because you're not changing anything.
Those are the things that I would suspect with people
Yeah.
downtown.
They will want to know.
You know, Vito's had an awning. We have an awning at some Insomnia Cookies. I'm sure there's other buildings that do as well. They're going to say, wait a minute, what? So we're going to, have to get approval to change our awning. Those are questions that I would suspect people downtown are going to ask.
Yeah.
Well,
The
it
answer
seems
is-
like,
The answer is yes, you would have to get approval,
Okay.
but you would probably, I think, based on the document we have, you would get approval for keeping things the same.
Keeping the same.
seems like part of the, what the commission's doing, of the whole purpose of the document all is preserving history and historic buildings. And so part of those buildings have already kind of transitioned away from that. It might be an awning or whatever, but it seemed like maybe looking into some of the history of the old buildings, like did they have awnings, and how to somehow get funds to help fund new features, say to make it look like it used to look, back when.
Presumably have that already, Will, because all of those buildings on the National Register have been documented.
It'd be interesting to look at. I kind of skimmed that U.S. Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation, illustrative guidelines for rehabilitating. I pulled that up. I downloaded it into my iPad, and I kind of skimmed it quickly. But it showed a building that was in Eureka, California, and we've been to Eureka. It's a redwood country out there. Our daughter used to live close there, but it's kind of interesting. Right down in town Eureka, there's a building, and they showed the sort of before the historic restoration, and they showed like in the corner there was this cylinder kind of thing in the corner. Over time, it was gone. Then they showed the after picture, like today, it's back on there. In other words, they went back and they looked at old photos and they restored it back to the way it was when it was built in the 1880s. It was really cool. So maybe to really get into looking at some of the historic photos, and like Les said, if it's in the National Register, it'd be interesting to see like what kind of photos were submitted, or if there's ways we can help owners entice their buildings. To me, it's like a purpose.
And that goes back to Heather's comment about education. We need to educate that, preservation doesn't have to be We want you to make it look like it did when it was built, and wear an old-fashioned dress and hat. We want to be respectful of it's 2020, but we don't want all of the buildings to be cookie cutter, new build with no character.
No, I agree. The building that we're in, I guess, was actually the theater before the Closelle.
It was.
No,
The floor is slanted and they had to even it all out so that we could
oh,
do
well,
where we're at now. So, I mean, it's neat to know that.
yeah.
That's an interior aspect.
Yeah,
So that's not covered here at all.
But
Well,
believe me,
and
it
one of
wouldn't
the
bother me if the awning was gone. That would not offend me.
They're not all beautiful, are they? Well, the design guidelines, in my opinion, we need to have some framework of design guidelines, but everything that we do is going to be so that it can be changed as we mature as a commission. But I would say we have to have something, even if it's a FAQ, what are the design guidelines going to look like, to go out to my neighbors and say, will you support this thing? Because that's going to be the first question is, are you going to oversee my paint color? Are you going to tell me what kind of roof I have to put on? Can I put a metal roof on? Do I have to put a comp shingle roof, or do I have to go buy all the slate and put it back on as a slate roof, which was how my house was built? So I think we definitely need to have an eye towards those design guidelines. Did we need to know exactly what they're going to be today? No, but I think we need to have in our mind what we think they might look like.
What if we start with this, Gail? What if I go through that document and try to pick out everything that I think of as a design guideline and just make a list of them?
I think that would be a good start. It would be an excellent start.
And then we can assess whether that's enough or not enough.
I think
Okay.
I think we need to keep this in a really positive light. We are doing something that's really exciting, and we want our community to join
That's
us,
right.
preserving what wonderful things we have here. And wouldn't it be exciting if, maybe you don't want to paint your house this color, but wouldn't that be great if you did? And try to not go into the negatives of what you can't do, but what you can do, and how we're going to help you, or even provide advice, perhaps, if it's required.
I belong to a Facebook group it's called Our Old House, and time again, people will post. I mean, it's thousands of members. I posted something and got 1,015 likes on my post of some old pictures of my house. The common thread on in that group is people don't know how to take care of these old houses. So being a resource for them is probably going to be one of the best things that we can do to get people excited. If you don't know what you're going to do, maybe we can help you figure out how to do it more cheaply or effectively, or just have a better outcome.
Good.
Yeah, I think these are things that we definitely need to do, but we have to get votes.
Right.
So,
Okay, any more goals we want to put on our immediate goal list, Les?
no, that's it. Well, I think the public relations thing is really big. I think that has to be in there.
Anyone else have input on goals? Okay, Heather, do you need to get out of here at 4:30 again?
Nope, I'm here.
Okay, because we have a couple more things on our list. The creation of design guidelines, Les, that was our next thing. You're going to give us sort of a draft of that.
Yep.
And building inventories, that is a big one. Where are we on that? Anybody remember?
We haven't really talked about that yet.
Do we want to talk about it or table it? It's 4:20 something.
I think we've got plenty to do right now.
Okay, so
But it is true that the inventories are a useful thing to do, whether or not we get districts, but.
right, for our new members, one of the tasks, and correct me if I'm misled, one of the tasks was to go block by block and look at each building and get a feel for what its history is. And there was a database, and Heather, can you help me along with what that is and where it is, if you know?
I don't remember that discussion. I
I
know
think-
the state has one.
That's what it was. Where is that, or how do we get to it?
I think it's from the State Historic Preservation Office webpage. I was gonna add too, my memories, if it serves right, we were talking about this being a great student project too, and I think that's really hard right now with not knowing what fall looks like and a lot of online work and
Right.
Salim, who's been here before, I know he's a great contact there to work with the students. Again, it's just so much going on right now. I don't know what's realistic or not for
Mhm.
that type of project.
Yeah, we were hoping, Will and John, we were hoping to find an intern in the building trades department at the university, wherever that would come from, an archaeology not archaeology student,
Architecture, right?
architectural student. But as Heather said, it's not as easy as it was a year ago.
Not right
So,
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That may
yeah, so-
change sometime soon.
But that needs to be done because until we have all those building inventories collected in one spot, it's going to be more cumbersome to try and make a district. Some of it exists in the National Register applications, but they're not complete and they haven't, I mean, most of them aren't really current.
Well, I think an example of where the focus should be is if you do want to do the area around the courthouse, since there's not realistically any building inventories because it's never been applied for the registrar, that's where you would start wanting to get your building inventories. Secondary to that, I think we discussed with Nathan several months ago, expanding downtown because really the downtown registrar listing of it is very small. And so he said it's always surprised him that we haven't made that bigger. So that would be a spot to get your building inventories too.
Okay.
Could I just ask a quick question here? Is our guest, are you Chris Mullen? So you have expertise in this area too, so I wonder if you have anything that you want to add to us at this point for us.
Oh, I didn't realize he was there because I can't see. That would be, is that lobby visitation next?
I don't, no, you're not getting it.
If you go to the
have come
microphone,
up.
they can hear you. Does that make sense? Because it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. You can't really. You can
Yeah,
see my
there's a
hand.
hand.
I just really quick a thought about the internships. By the way, I'm an architect, registered architect. I work for Thomas Porter Architects downtown Toledo. We do a lot of historic preservation work. Myself and our partner Julie App, the two of us are kind of our historic preservation architects in our office. So we do a lot of tax credit applications. With that comes, a lot of the research and stuff. So I will tell you, until I just kind of like jumped head into it, I didn't have any training through school from an architecture side. So the cultural heritage is usually more like on the anthropology side. So if you're wanting to bring in a student who would have an understanding of how to research the buildings, what resources to use, maybe someone down in the historic preservation department in Cincinnati, maybe they have a student who's from this area who might be willing to do that internship. I know BGSU has a great architecture program, but because historic preservation is so specific, sometimes there might be a lot more training involved to get them to the point where they can help out. So the thought on that. I also wanted to just note, because I am a boomtown resident, obviously I care a lot about preservation, as do a lot of my neighbors, but I know the gentleman I bought my house from, he was not so keen on it when it first, in 2014. So I know there's opposition. I think a big thing that our community could benefit from is understanding the incentives and understanding the incentives that come with this, you know, not just what are your restrictions, but what can this do for you? What kind of grants can our downtown apply for? And what kind of resources these home owners might have that they don't currently. So I think if you can kind of spin it that way, a lot more people will be interested rather than just saying like, here's going to be your restrictions. Because they're, you know, everyone's gonna be like, well, what's in it for me? Kinda.
What's in it for me and what do I have to do? That's
Yeah.
the two. Yeah, that's going to be the two things we have to really figure out the answers to.
Yeah.
You're spot on.
So I'm on the board for Preserve Toledo. We are new nonprofit. We started a year and a half ago, but we're still in the process of getting our 501c3. We just finally finished all that paperwork. And one of our big things has been educating people. Last August, we did a house history workshop, or a window workshop. You could go learn how to restore your old wood windows so you're not having to spend all this money to put in brand new windows. It's just kind of an eye opener to understand these things that we say are really cool to do are really not as complicated as people think. And we do a house history workshop twice a year. I think Les, you attended the last one we had.
Yeah, I
Did
did.
you?
Yes, I did.
Which is really neat for anyone who's ever interested. It's kind of fun you just learn it's geared toward, we partner with Lucas County Library, so they go through their resources, but Wood County has almost the exact same resources that Lucas County does on their library website. So it's just kind of those sorts of things that we can provide residents as like education, I think is going to be really helpful for them to be on board. So, yeah. That's all
Thank you for your insights. And
Oh,
thank you
sure,
for
yeah.
Good input.
Yeah.
Chris,
Yes.
did you say that you gave those workshops or your committee did?
Well, I was a part of it. There's only 4 of us in Preserve Toledo, so we are all kind of all hands on deck all the time.
Maybe you would consider doing a workshop for us.
Yeah, I would. The last house history workshop we did was really, we kind of gelled it all really well. I've been talking so Erin Clausen's our president, and she's actually a cultural resource management. That's her, day job. So she has a lot of that kind of resource knowledge. I've been talking with her about tailoring one to Wood County that we could bring down here. Or to Perrysburg or both. We kind of like to move around because our mission is to reach all of Northwest Ohio, even though our name is Preserve Toledo, it's really for all of Northwest Ohio.
Do you do these in a home or do you do these in a public space?
Well, we've been doing them at the libraries because we partner with the library. This year, I don't think we'll be doing an in-person one. We have sort of a document we've created we will be putting out because right now we have some events that we had planned that we're kind of either moving to a virtual format or saving for a later date.
Mm-hmm.
Just so we're not.
And what is the name of your nonprofit?
Preserve Toledo.
Preserve Toledo.
Mhm.
Chris, being new, is there a place where I can get those incentives? I can find out what they all are, a website or?
Like I have some knowledge of some. I
Okay.
don't know if there's a concise place where you could sort of, I could send you to, but I could probably put together a couple that, incentives that I know of.
That'd be wonderful, because I
Yeah.
think especially if talking to the business people downtown, that's what
Yeah.
they're gonna wanna know.
I mean, the
What do I
big
get
one
out of
for
this?
commercial buildings is going to be the historic tax credits.
Okay. See, and
And
I,
Level probably could help a lot.
Yeah.
And the
State.
CLG website has
Mhm.
CL, okay,
advantages listed.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's one of the things we talked about doing with some grant money is maybe if we were a CLG, having that type of program.
Yeah, that would be great.
And,
We basically have
Chris-
zero.
Chris, I'm looking back at your email and you were, had graciously offered to join the commission if there was a vacancy for your skills or your, where you were living. So you can keep that in mind, you know, for the group, that she is open to more participation. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, that's correct. I'm not gunning for John's position or anything. I just
I just want to make sure that everybody understood that you were on in here for the long haul like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Great.
So I've lived in Bowling Green just over 3 years, almost 3.5 years. But I've lived all over the country and I've been part of preservation organizations in Wyoming and Kentucky and Delaware. So even though I'm new to Bowling Green, I'm not new to the appreciation. And actually, one of the reasons I wanted, when my husband got his position at BGSU and we were looking where to live, we came to Bowling Green and I said, you know, I really appreciated the historic architecture it's here. And I said, okay, this is where we're gonna, I told him, I said, I will move there, but I have to own one of those historic homes someday.
There's,
And
there's a couple for sale on our block.
I know.
Nice big ones.
People like
I know.
you.
Yeah, so we,
Chris, without giving too much information, where are you in Boomtown?
yeah, I'm in the 600 block of West Worcester, so
Okay.
close between Meeker and Haskins.
Got it.
But we lived in just kind of up on Wolfley for about 14 months before our house went on the market, and then we said, oh, wait a second, I want that one. So
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there any other thing we need to cover before we adjourn?
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nothing? Okay, Chris, thank you so much for your input. We will be in touch. I look forward to meeting you in person, since I can't even see your face from my point of view. And Will and John, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And
Enjoyed it.
the rest of us, well, good for us for coming back, right?
Yeah. This is a terrible set of minutes that it's gonna have to do here.
All right.
Any details?
Les, John, anything else for the good of the order?
Next meeting, do you want to
Oh,
discuss?
next meeting.
Next meeting? Want 1 month, 2 months?
Well, I think we should try to meet monthly just to
Okay, August, what are we, the 4th?
back in gear.
4th Friday, was our August the 28th?
That's fine.
That work?
August the 28th.
At what time?
3?
3 o'clock if possible. John, does 3 o'clock work for you, do you think?
Um,
John Samplin, I mean.
I have no idea, but I think so.
All right, and Heather, will your kids be back in school that you need to be
Good Lord.
free?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Flip a coin.
So 3 o'clock, 3 to 4:30 is a good time. Does that work for everybody?
Yep, sounds good.
Fine.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting everybody. That's,
Happy to
All
be
right,
here.
so a motion to adjourn
so moved.
and
Second.
seconded. We are adjourned. It was nice, Will and John.
Well,
and
appreciate it.
Everybody, thank you so much. And we'll
Good.
we'll work on our assignments and reconvene on the 28th.
Sounds great.
All right.
Tell
Thank you all.
Alex I said hello.
I shall. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, take care. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, Les. Bye, John.
Chris, do you live near the Abel house? You know the Abel house? The Mary Abel lived there, raised her family there. It's
yeah, so
almost on the
white one
corner,
with the
big
corner.
house. Almost on the corner into Haskins.
Or is it the white?
It's on Worcester.
It just-
I don't know, that's what I was wondering, whether you knew.